is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher, mother!
Secret lover.
What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
Hey there, folks. This is the Screen Watching Podcast, and because it's not the Carrot Top fan podcast, I haven't got a series of props that I can bring to this podcast. So if I was a bit more prepared, what I would have said is, on this week's very special edition of Screen Watching, myself, Dan Barrett, and my co-host Simon Foster, the two of us are going to be doing our looks ahead at 2025, the movies and TV shows that we expect to be excited by as the year goes on. If I had my Carrot Top style props, I'd have some sort of towel over my head, some sort of a sheet, some sort of crystal ball, and I'd be like, oh, ladies and gentlemen, and doing a bit of that. But I didn't do any of that. So instead, I'm just going to have to say, folks, this is Screen Watching. We talk about the movies. We talk about the TV shows. My name's Dan Barrett. Simon Foster. I already gave that information, but I don't have a script ever. So here we are. Simon Foster, you're well. I'm going to take that for record. This is our first podcast of 2025, and I'm now going to allow you to speak.
Thank you, sir. Yes, it is our first podcast. Hello, Screen Watchers. Welcome to the premiere edition of the 2025 Screen Watching podcast. I am looking forward to this because I had to do a little bit of research to figure out what were some of the big... I know it's not de rigueur for us to do research. And I do have a bit of a sniffle, bit of a cough, I should say, and I'm sorry. Anyone who's read The Stand by Stephen King knows that a summer cold is an early indicator of a mass extinction event. So if anything if this podcast doesn't go out for some reason, you'll know what's gone down. So I do apologize for my croaky voice.
Look out for Captain Trips. Look, at the moment, I haven't seen anyone locally, so I'm in Brisbane at the moment for a few more days. So obviously, if the outbreak takes place in Sydney, I guess I'll just be saving myself over the border. And Queensland's been quite good about blocking the border in terms of pandemics, so I might be okay.
You'll be fine. You'll get the podcast out no matter what.
I may have been trapped on the other side of that border for about 6 months, a few years ago, but that's neither here nor there. Simon Foster, Here's what we're doing this week. We are each of us choosing some, because he's the movie guy. He's going to pick up 5 movies that he's looking forward to for 2025. I'm going to grab an equal number of TV shows. The challenge that Simon never appreciates, because he's a movie guy and TV is really quite a bit different, is that movies, they announce like years ahead what's coming up.
That's
TV
true.
shows, you're lucky to know 3 months ahead of what's coming up. And sometimes those release dates change. Sometimes, shows get dropped off a schedule for whatever reason. But usually you don't know those details. And also, there's a weird thing that's been happening in the last sort of year or two where you'll know that a show is coming, but they haven't actually even announced the entirety of the cast. There'll be like a thing 3 weeks before the show comes out going, oh, and joining the cast is Michael Shannon. And it's like, well, this show's already been in the can for like 5 months. Like, you know that. This is just pre-publicity stuff. But unless, like, you just don't know. Like, you don't know who's coming. So,
well, I'm counting on your vast knowledge of the television industry and the production schedule to know what might be around. Because you're absolutely right. I clicked on a couple of websites and all of a sudden I know what's coming out in November next year for the movie. So that's not a problem. The dates are locked, and dates change, of course, but the dates are fairly locked into the movie calendar. You, on the other hand, you've got to have your EPGs all your research that you do to know exactly what's happening when, and even then it's not right.
What I'll say this is my look ahead to 2025 is really a look ahead to the next 3 months when things are actually dated. So it's going to be a pretty immediate list for me. And of course, the caveat that we sort of throw out with any sort of a list like this when you're talking culture is that the things that we're going to talk about being sort of excited by, we're going to lean on IP probably and some big name stars or talent behind the camera.
Sure.
That's not always necessarily a sign that these will be the big programs of the year, but it's all you really have to go on. And the great thing about TV particularly, but movie certainly surprises as well, you never know what's coming next. You could sit down and start watching something and be blown away by it in a way that you just had not anticipated.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Can we please get on with this?
All right. We've done the preamble. Simon Foster, what is they're not numbered, but like what's up on your list? What do you got first?
So I'm going to go in chronological order as the dates presented themselves to me when I was doing this quote-unquote research. Coming out March 7 is a Robert Pattinson film called Mickey 17.
Hi, Mickey. Are you experiencing any vertigo?
I guess I am feeling a little dizzy.
Did you see that?
And this is directed by Bong Joon-ho, who's obviously had huge success with Parasite over the last couple of years. This is a sci-fi thriller. It tells the story of Mickey, who's a quote-unquote disposable employee, and he's sent on a deadly mission to colonize the ice world of Niflheim. It's basically a clone story, and what this does is gives Robert Pattinson a bit of an opportunity to play opposite himself, as well as playing opposite a great cast. It includes Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette. So the other 4 of my movies, I think, are either remakes of a kind or sequels. This one is a standalone original bit of IP, and that's quite exciting.
Look, the question I have with Mickey 17 is, we believe that this is coming out in the beginning of March, but is it? This is one of these films which Warner Brothers have been moving all over the schedule for months now. So
that's exactly right. Yeah, it would have been out already if it had stuck to the original schedule, but it's not, and I'm counting on March 7 as being the date. But who knows? Big Pattinson fan. He's chosen some interesting work of late, so I'm keen to see what he does with this. The trailer's very funny.
yeah, I think originally this was planned to come out like about a year ago when it was first announced. I don't think it's been sitting on the shelf for a year. I think that was a production plan, and I'm not sure exactly when they filmed. Actually, no, sorry. Here we go. I've got it here. They conclude in December 2022. So it has been sitting there for quite some time, ready to go, and Warner Brothers just haven't.
Let's go to your first one. Let's go back and forth on this. I like the back and forth.
Yeah, well, it makes sense this week. This week, the first one, and look, this is just a week away that we're really going to be talking about this, week and a half. The Pit.
Hey, Dave, what's a good word?
We're fucked. 52 in the waiting room, and it's not even 7.
We're always working the shift, by the way. Got him a little slack today. It's the anniversary of Dr. Adamson's death.
This is a show which, thankfully, as we record this 2 and a bit hours ago, embargo has broken, so I can actually talk about this program, which is kind of nice.
One question. Brad
yes.
or Arm?
Is it Arm? I thought it was who's
that's a joke. Brad Pitt or Armpit? It's a kind of
Armpit. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a weird mispronunciation of a name or something. I was like, Arm. Like I got the Brad Pitt. That was an obvious joke.
All right. You may want to cut all that out. Who knows? But let's leave it in there.
No, it just makes me look better. Look, The Pit. This is something I've been banging on for a little while now. It was look. Here's the logline for it. It's a realistic examination of the challenges facing healthcare workers in America, as seen through the lens of frontline heroes working in a modern-day hospital in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That sounds really dry. People are likely to watch that as much as they did 5 Days of Memorial on Apple TV Plus a couple of years ago. That doesn't sound like people are going to watch. Here's what it really is. A couple of years ago, they're like, hey, we're going to reboot ER. They talked to the Crichton estate. Things didn't really quite pan out. They went back to the drawing board. Did a few sort of nips and tucks, have a brand new TV program. It's called The Pit. ER star Noah Wiley's back as like the lead doctor in this one, and he's leading a team of, a handful of young doctors in various stages of their very early career through this emergency room. I think that it's quite easy, and this is where I can actually talk off embargo now. Actually, technically, Simon, we're recording this just pre-embargo, so if you can just hold it onto your hat for a little bit, but we are releasing this afterwards.
No one will hear this, don't worry.
It's fine. Well, it'll be in a while after the embargo. I'm just talking about you specifically, so walk around with a state secret. What's kind of really interesting, why it's just as much like ER as really any other hospital drama set in an emergency room would be, but the interesting sort of gimmick on this that really pays off and makes it feel very different to ER is it's set across a 15-hour period, and every hour of the show is an hour in the lives of these people. So it kind of has this sort of faux real-time 24 style vibe to this program.
Okay.
What that does is it means that if you think about like an emergency room situation, you've got a constant influx of patients who are in that hospital for, once they get seen by a doctor, which can be hours after turning up, okay, they may be seen for 15 minutes and sent on their way with some medication. They might be there for, another 8 hours. They may die in a hospital room. Like there's all sorts of things that can happen when you come into an emergency room, all sorts of things that changes. So you're seeing the flow of patients come in, and you're seeing the way that some of them have no impact at all on the doctors' lives, and some of them have really just fundamental impacts. And along the way, there's interpersonal dramas and whatnot going on.
My big question is... Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, what's also kind of interesting, sorry, before we do that, is that at no point do they ever actually leave the emergency room. In part, this is because it's a streaming show filmed very much on a budget. They have stretched because most streaming shows you're looking at anywhere between like 6 to 8 to 12 episodes. They've stretched this out to 15. It feels more like old school network TV, and every hour is there to be watched on its own, like an old school network TV drama. But if you do watch them in a binge, and that might be 2 episodes back to back, it might be 5, it might be 15, it's still a rewarding experience and has its own, own benefits to doing that.
What I'm bringing to this is I'm just keen to see if this is ER's Carter 30 years later. Is this what could have become of the character that Noah Wyle played on ER all those years?
Look, good question. I would say that as someone who's watched, I did an ER rewatch not too long ago, and watching 15 seasons across like 8 or 9 months,
Time well spent. Yep.
I mean, it was actually time well spent. It's a very good drama, as I came to learn. I'd watched ER in the early years, but I'd never stuck with it in the original run. But certainly I encourage people, do the binge. Like, it is some wild TV that you see across those 15 seasons. This show, if you said that this was John Carter, okay, you easily could get away with this being ER : The Pit. Okay, but it's not John Carter, and there's very little of his day-to-day world that's really explored through this. Like, you do see the character dealing with some trauma following the death of a mentor not too long ago. Okay, it's a COVID-related death, and so he's dealing with that. But as we record this, 9 episodes in, and haven't yet seen exactly the full scope of that. And maybe I've seen everything they're going to show, I'm not too sure, but there may be something else yet to come. Okay. But we don't know enough about the character to say that, no, this isn't John Carter, but his name in this one is like Dr. Rabinowitz. So it's quite different, and it's... ER was quite some time ago, so if we are going to talk about John Carter as a person who's had... ER finished in like 2008, 2009, I think, from memory. So like that's 17, 18 years of growth. I mean, essentially in 18 years, you can become an entirely different person anyway. So they've kind of played it both ways.
All right. So that is out. That is out as we speak. Is it happening this week?
The embargo breaks on the 4th of January. So we're definitely able to talk about this by the time this podcast drops, but it doesn't debut till the 9th.
Wonderful stuff. All right. Here's the first of my sequels. Now, just last year, I think it was last year. No, well, it'll be last year when this goes out. I'm already confused. Mission Impossible had stumbled a bit at the box office. The Adventures of Ethan Hunt, which has been my favorite franchise now for the last 20-odd, 30-odd years, whatever it's been. The Final Reckoning hits
1996.
Cinemas. There you go. For a long, long time. The Final Reckoning hits cinemas May 23. This is what is shaping up as Ethan Hunt's last mission. The whole IMF team are back together for this. Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Hayley Atwell, Vanessa Kirby. I'm a little bit worried because I just saw the script list here and it's got Hannah Waddingham in it. Oh, she drives me mad. Holt McElhaney is a good add-in to the cast. It was shot at the same time as the last Mission Impossible film, so it'll have the same look and feel. I loved the last Mission Impossible film, despite it stumbling at the box office. So there was a little bit of internet banter that this wasn't going to be released, given how quickly the last one fell off the box office charts. Obviously, that's not going to happen. This is still a big deal, and the final trailer, or the first trailer for this, is out there and looking pretty spectacular, as only Mission Impossible films do nowadays. So, yeah, very keen. May 23. I should point out that's May 23 in US cinemas. The dates I'm using are the US release dates. I'm not quite sure what's happening here, but yeah, looking forward to that one.
Our lives are not defined by any one action. Our lives are the sum of our choices.
Everything you were, everything you've done has come to this.
I feel like the last Mission Impossible we may have gotten like a day or two earlier than the US.
Yeah, we did. Well, he was out here for the premiere that I went to, and we sung Happy Birthday to Tom. Yeah. I know it was a hell of a thing. We saw it on the big screen down at the ICC Theatre here in Sydney. So yeah, I think we did get it a day before the US guys did. But yeah, looking forward to it. Love the Mission Impossible. Oh, how does it thing go?
Can I help you out here? Yeah, and a bit of
Great music.
Just sorry, on a tangent here because I'm a TV guy. Obviously, Mission Impossible TV franchise. Let's be real.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm currently reading this book, which is Primetime, 1966
Nice.
to 67. It looks at the first season of TV when it like properly went full color in the United States. And so, what's interesting about that year is not only did it go color, but because it went color, that was an opportunity for all the networks to really sort of revitalize TV, and that's where you see that generational shift between the 1950s, which were very sort of cowboy and Western and Middle America centric, and from 66, like there's actually very few drama series on the air at that point. There's a lot of bright comedies and sort of a lot of youth focused energy taking place on the TV. And so you start seeing as everything's moving to color, it's kind of like saying goodbye to the old guard of TV and just embracing like all the new wild sort of stuff that you think about as being from the 60s.
You've got a terrific library of books there. I saw your post during the week about what you got for Christmas. I've got this Flying High book. There was a bunch of great books that you do a lot of reading of. No wonder you're so learned.
So learned. I got this really cool book. It was a look back at The Third Man, which I'm going to devour as soon as I finish this Primetime book.
Nice one. All right, what's up next for you?
Yeah. Next up for me is, let me just try to find my little list here because I got distracted looking up Hannah Waddingham just a moment ago because I was like, surely she was in the last Mission Impossible, but she wasn't. Yeah. Coming up on January 29 is an animated show called Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
What?
Now,
really?
Yes. Okay, let's play a clip.
Hey. Oh! Petey's always been a bit clumsy.
You know me, clumsy, Petey, Parker. Help! Mr. Campbell, I remembered I left something in the bathroom. Deuces. Parker out.
Superpower size kid, know you want a neighbor like me.
Okay, so you've seen that trailer, and look, this was a show that was kind of on my radar, but I wasn't sort of, it certainly wasn't a top 5. I got to see this TV program, but I watched that trailer and it just looks like it's incredible fun. First of all, you can see from the quality of that animation, like it's pretty sort of rich and vibrant, but also I really like how colorful it is and the sort of simplicity of the artwork. It just kind of looks like they've learned like a lot of lessons from the Across the Spider-Verse films and are just creating a lot of sort of variation in animation style at the moment. It just kind of feels like it's a rich, exciting time to be watching what would be otherwise a fairly generic superhero story.
Who's the talent behind it? Do we know who's doing the? It's not the Across the Universe guys, is it?
No. The Across the Universe guys are busy restarting the new Across the Universe film because apparently it was most of the way through production. They didn't care for it and they've started again from scratch.
Wow.
So go the rumors, who knows what's happening there and if we'll ever see it. I'm sure it'll come out, but God knows when. And God knows what the budget is on scrapping films like this and restarting.
Sony need that to keep their Spider-Man thing happening.
Well, they just got to finish it off. Like, it's the third of a trilogy. So, the other two films start to lose library value if the third one doesn't deliver. But anyway, getting back to this new Spidey cartoon, the premise of it's sort of fairly generic in that it sort of looks at the idea of Spider-Man in an alternate way than we've seen him in the movies recently. But they're leaning much more on the movies than they are the comics generally. But it explores Peter Parker's origin story as a teenager in high school and his early days as Spider-Man. But instead of in the movies where you see his mentor become Tony Stark, it's actually Norman Osborn, who of course goes on to become the Green Goblin, as we saw in the first Spider-Man film from Sam Raimi back in 2001? 2000? Never came out. Yep. 2001, because it was like right when the World Trade Center had its little issue.
Jesus. Yes, that little issue that it had. Okay,
sorry,
all right.
I just didn't want to spoil it in case anyone was planning to watch one of the movies about it.
For sure, yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
All right, so what's it called? What's the full name of it?
It's called, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah, sounds cute. All right. Yeah. Speaking of cute, my next most anticipated of 2025, and I'm going to I know I'm going to get an eye roll from you about this because to date this has been the anathema that has almost brought down Marvel on a couple of occasions. I'm really looking forward to the new Fantastic Four First Steps movie. July 25, it hits US cinemas, mostly because of the cast. We're looking at Vanessa Kirby again after Mission Impossible. She's turning up in Fantastic Four as Sue Storm. Joseph Quinn, who I'm a fan from Stranger Things, he's Johnny Storm. Pedro Pascal is Reed Richards, and your man Eben Moss Bachrach from The Bear is Ben Grimm, or The Thing. It's all set in 1960s New York City. Is the word, given that the script's under fairly tight security, but that seems to be the buzz.
Certainly a good portion of it is. I'd be
Yes.
surprised if they keep them in the 60s. But
That's
we'll
true,
see.
yeah. Some of the artwork and some of the pre-release stuff that they've released to the internet looks terrific, and they look great as the Fantastic Four. It's directed by Matt Shackman, who did some good work on the WandaVision show, which I was a fan of. So I really don't know too much more about this, other than I'm excited by... I've always sort of enjoyed the Fantastic Four films. They're kind of the dippy cousins of the serious Marvel universe, but... See, I didn't even mind the Jessica Alba versions. I thought they were pretty cool. So anyway, I'm just a Fantastic Four kind of guy. I like the suits. I might get one for the premiere.
Look, you should. I mean, you very much are the Ben Grimm to... the Ben Grimm of podcasting. Hey,
That's
look...
me, yes.
Yeah. Look, I would probably say that I think the Fantastic Four film is going to be fine. I find it an interesting choice to set it in the 60s because back when they were making the first Fantastic Four movie, and I'm trying to make sure I got my chronology right, the plan for that one was to set it in the 60s. So the guy that directed Down with Love, whose name I've forgotten at the moment, but it's kind of interesting.
Peyton Reed.
Peyton Reed, who later went on to do the Ant-Man film, which...
When they sacked Edgar Wright, yeah.
That's right. But originally he was there doing the first Fantastic Four film, and the idea was to film it just like Down with Love, and it was going to be a very sort of, crazy sort of 60s orientated piece that way. But it just kind of feels like that's been sort of trapped in the mythology of this film in sort of pre-production, and so it's coming to the screen now as part of a MCU movie, which is just interesting to me. I don't know that it's necessarily the best creative choice at this point. It made all the sense in the world in the 90s, but I don't know that setting something a few decades prior in an established universe where we've never heard of the Fantastic Four, like that kind of just seems a bit weird to me.
It's strange. It's such an anachronistic. Yeah, I'll go on.
I was going to say, if you think it sounds like a cool idea that's being set in the 60s, people at large, not necessarily you, Simon Foster, maybe you should have gone and seen Down with Love, because the poor box office with that is what gave them the heebie-jeebies and run away from it.
Yeah, I saw Down with Love, and yeah, I wasn't a fan.
You know what? I saw Down with Love again at the cinema 6 months ago. I was playing at the Randwick Ritz, and I had a great time with it.
Yeah, it's a cool film. Fantastic Four is like this. They kind of position themselves in this very anachronistic sort of world. They are from the early, from what I know of the origin story, it's the early days of space travel. They're wearing those weird sort of blue bodysuits. It's. I can see why it's hard to update them to a modern setting. And all the versions that have tried to do that have failed to varying degrees. They've always still been watchable adventures for me, but they always seem they're outliers to the rest of the MC universe. So I'm keen to see what they do with this. There must be something special about this project to attract that kind of cast, and probably paychecks, but we'll see.
Oh, it's all paychecks. But what you probably have to just realize is that from a comics perspective, like comics fans love the Fantastic Four because it's the first Marvel comic properly. Okay, so people are just, there's obviously a nostalgic sort of fondness for the characters, but the whole idea with the Fantastic Four is that they're supposed to be on the cutting edge of science continually, decade on decade. So it's actually not a big deal to move them from the 60s through to the modern day, because you just have to keep on putting them right on fringe science, which opens the door to all sorts of crazy, fun, wild stories. You just have to have an imaginative writer who can bring that to the screen in a way that is audience friendly.
Hopefully Matt Shackman will do that. Okay, what's next for you in the world of television?
Look, next for me is, what are we going to talk about here? We're talking about a show that, I don't know if you've heard of this one, Simon. It's called The White Lotus.
I know of it. It's a gardening show, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Look, it's back on February 16 for a third season. There is a radical departure on this one in that it's set in Thailand this time.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. Anyway, other than that, it's the same show coming back. What's notable is obviously people are going to look to the cast on this one. So thematically, the first one, as far as showrunner Mike White sort of said, the first one's about money, the second one's about sex and power. But I also thought the second one was about money as well. So what do I know? And I thought that sex and power were also there in the first season. But the third one's going to look at sort of Asian spirituality and life and death. But I also suspect you'll see a lot about money, sex, and power
I'm
sprinkled
thinking
throughout
so.
it.
Is there any I didn't watch the trailer as we record this. The trailer dropped a couple of weeks ago. And is there anyone of note in the cast that I should get excited about?
Well, first of all, I don't think we just played the trailer then, so let's drop in the trailer. Okay, come out of it. As you saw in the trailer, we've got Leslie Bibb, Kerry Coon, and Michelle Monaghan. They're three friends on a girl's getaway. You got Walton Goggins in there on a holiday with his much younger girlfriend. You've got Jason Isaacs and Parker Posey as a wealthy married couple traveling with their three kids. Nice. The oldest one of them played by Patrick Schwarzenegger. So, look, it's a pretty good cast.
Sure, they could make it work. That's a good cast. Okay, all right, so that's exciting.
Yeah, so just repeating, that one comes out on April 6th. Oh, sorry, February 16th.
July 2. I have a long, passionate, and at times frustrating history with the Jurassic Park / World franchise. On July 2, one of my favorite directors, Gareth Edwards, who did the next to best Star Wars film, Rogue One, and screenwriter David Koepp, who returns to the franchise, having written the first film and a bunch of the sequels, I'm quite sure. They're bringing Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali to the world of Jurassic World in the movie Rebirth. That was a terribly put together sentence. I do apologize. The planet's ecology has become unlivable for dinosaurs, so an intrepid team races to find DNA samples from 3 massive creatures before the second wave of extinction occurs. I'm kind of down on this mostly because of Edwards. He does great work with big scenes. I liked his Godzilla movie. As you know, as I mentioned, I certainly like Rogue One. The last couple of Jurassic World films have both been amongst my favorite of their specific year and my least favorite of their specific year. But I'm hoping that he can bring something fresh and new, and with Scarlett Johansson on board, maybe so. So yeah, Jurassic World Rebirth. That's literally all I know about it. July 2.
I reckon there have been 2 good Jurassic Park movies. Yeah, which ones do you reckon they are?
Well, definitely the first one.
Yep.
Remains a classic. I would say the one that J.A. Bayona directed, which I think was... I don't think it was Dominion.
No, it was the second one of those, where it was like a haunted house film more than...
Yeah, which I thought was really cool.
I don't know, I like the idea of that as a log line, but I'm not sure I actually like the film all that much. The 2 that I reckon are good are Jurassic Park, the first one, obviously, and also Jurassic Park 3. I think is a little bit underrated.
It's a Joe Johnston film. Joe Johnston's one of my favorite journeyman directors. He did The Rocketeer. He did the first Captain America film. He's done a lot of great movies, and I got a soft spot for number 3 as well, despite it being torn asunder by the internet on various occasions. It's got some loopy moments, but the whole thing's got some loopy moments in it. So yeah, no, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, also it runs at a really lean, like 85 or 90 minutes. Like it's
as every movie should.
Yeah, it's a fun little thing, because how long do you really need to spend on an island with dinosaurs?
Well,
I mean, the answer is preferably as little amount of time as possible, because it looks pretty scary.
Very true. All right, let's get to your next to last most anticipated TV project.
March 20, The Residence, which doesn't yet have a trailer as far as I'm aware, debuts on Netflix. This is, and let me read the blurb, it's set in an upstairs, downstairs, and backstairs of the White House. Cordelia Cupp, great name, is an eccentric detective, and she arrives on the premises in order to solve a murder which has happened during a state dinner. And here's the exciting part about this, Simon. During the investigation, interpersonal conflicts between 157 personnel of the Residence start to unfold. And my understanding of the show, and I could be slightly off on this, but my understanding is the real fun of the show is that it is a very large cast of people that you have some familiarity with. So let me just drop you some names.
All right.
Uzo Aduba from Orange is the New Black. Giancarlo Esposito, who, he's in everything. He's notably here playing a role that Andre Braugher was supposed to play in the series, but obviously with Braugher's passing, they needed to find someone else. So Giancarlo's there. Jason Lee from Chasing Amy, My Name is Earl's there. Ken Marino from Party Down. Randall Park from, Everything Lately. Spencer Garrett, who you don't know his name, but you absolutely know his face. Balky himself, Bronson Pinchot. Isaiah Whitlock Jr., shit. Mary Wiseman from Star Trek Discovery, Al Franklin from SNL, and, a bit of touchy. He didn't actually touch, it was, games.
And a Washington veteran as well. He did his time in the Congress there, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a senator. Speaking of politics, Julian McMahon will hilariously play the Prime Minister of Australia. And of course, to people who aren't from Australia, you may not know the fact that he was the only son of a former Prime Minister, Billy McMahon. Very short-lived Prime Minister.
Is this This
also, sorry, I've got a few more names. Got a few more names for you here. Kylie Minogue's in there playing herself. Jane Curtin from Saturday Night Live and Third Rock from the Sun. Eliza Coupe from Happy Endings, and so many more character actors that you all know by face, if not by name.
Wow, this is that. I mean,
Like,
now
it's good.
I'm excited
Yeah.
by this. Yeah, it's. Is it a riff on the Knives Out sort of premise? Is it going to be that kind of
Dunno.
humor with a mystery
Beats me.
wrapped around it as well? Okay. that
So look,
sounds
the guy running it, whose name I didn't jot down, is the guy that ran Scandal for a few seasons, if not the entirety of the run. Shonda Rhimes is the executive producer of this, so I expect that it's going to have a fair bit of grounded but also high drama,
Nice
as
one.
is her way.
That is an interesting one. You've got one more TV one to go, haven't you?
I do.
Okay, so this is the last of my film ones, and then I've got a couple of TV ones I'll come in with after yours. But on September 26th, now this is, well, I guess it's a remake of sorts. Well, it's definitely a remake of sorts, but it's a retelling of the Bride of Frankenstein story. It stars Christian Bale is Frankenstein's monster, and Jessie Buckley, who I am a huge fan of, love Jessie, who worked with director Maggie Gyllenhaal on The Last Daughter. She's portraying the bride. It isn't set back in medieval your days. This is actually set in 1930 Chicago. And Warner Brothers are putting a lot of money and expertise into making this a major work. September 26th suggests they're trying to roll it into the maybe into the award season contention, and the casting of people like Christian Bale is certainly with that in mind. But yeah, The Bride is something that I went through this list and I got maybe sort of 40 or 50 films that were coming up this year. And I do apologize for them being very American-centric, but we're not getting a lot of info about what the rest of the world's doing with their movies at this stage. But The Bride was one that sort of leapt out at me. I have a lot of fondness for the otherwise much derided Jennifer Beals Sting version of The Bride, which came out way back when, 84 or 85, I think. So I like the story of The Bride. In fact, we sat down, couldn't decide what to watch the other night, and for the first time I watched James Whale's version of Frankenstein from like 1931, and it's got some incredible stuff in it. I can see why it's held in such high regard. So The Bride is something I'm looking forward to.
You heard it here, folks. The original Frankenstein movie is a pretty good one.
Yeah, it's cutting news, kids. Look it up.
Also, Frankenstein's monster. Are we pronouncing that right?
Frankenstein? Is that what you're suggesting?
I think that's right.
I think that's correct.
So I've been led to believe. Look, final TV show on my list is Your Friends and Neighbors. This debuts April 11 on Apple TV+. Yep. The blurb for this one is, after being fired in disgrace, a hedge fund manager resorts to stealing from his neighbors' homes in the affluent Westmont village, only to discover the secrets hidden behind the wealthy facades that might be more dangerous.
Leave that in.
I'm now reminded of one of my favorite McDonald's ads from the last couple of years. Was like about 5 years ago, and they were talking about their focaccia rolls.
I know. I saw this on a list of upcoming stuff, and I know why you're here. One, Mr. Perfect Christmas timing here, Mr. Hamm.
Well, in part. So look, anything that has Jon Hamm in it's going to catch my attention. So cast-wise, this is Jon Hamm leading this, and it's very much a one-hander because he is central for all of this program. Okay, in a way that you'd look at Mad Men, that was very much an ensemble. Not the case here. Like, this is Jon Hamm, like, up front. Other cast members include Olivia Munn, Amanda Peet, Hoon Lee, which we'll get to that name in a moment. Hoon Lee's interesting because he appeared in this TV show called Banshee. He's in this new program, Your Friends and Neighbors, playing a very different character, which, if you've seen Banshee, you'll certainly understand why I have to mention that, because it was a pretty wild character he was playing back in that program. if you haven't seen Banshee, do yourself a favor. If you like sort of lurid crime, action, adventure shows like Banshee, like there's nothing else like Banshee ever on TV. Simon, have you ever watched Banshee?
No, you brought it up on the Screen Watching
Yeah.
podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I did make a note of it, and it'll probably turn into my New Year's binge because it looks fun.
Oh, dude, get onto it. What are you doing for the rest of the day? Just get right in there. But look, the guy that created, well, sorry, he wasn't the creator of Banshee. He was the showrunner of it. Is this guy named Jonathan Tropper, and he's there running this program. Okay, so if you remember the, I guess, sort of very sort of arch sense of humor that sort of ran through Banshee, as well as the very sort of dark masculine energy, I guess, of Banshee as well. That carries through into this program in a really big way. But there is no sort of big action adventure set pieces with Jon Hamm sort of doing any of the crazy shit that you saw in Banshee. Like Banshee really was wild. I probably can't say that I've seen this.
Apple TV, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that a plus or a minus? Are enough people going to watch this? Apple TV is becoming the having a reputation for being home of quality television that no one ever sees.
All I'll say is this is the quality. Well, I'm sorry, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really say with any sort of great certainty. But I would say definitely put this on your radar.
Okay, good to know. All right, let me just rattle off in my very limited knowledge of what's happening in the world of television. I found 2 projects from 2025 that I'm quite excited by. First up is another Apple TV series. It's called The Studio. Seth Rogen has co-created and stars in this Hollywood satire as the head of Continental Studios, which is a studios in a little bit of free fall. A lot of big names appearing in this one. Martin Scorsese, Charlize Theron, Zoe Kravitz, Ron Howard. Also Bryan Cranston in amongst the cast there, Catherine O'Hara. So I love a good insider satire, the machinations of the Hollywood system and all the craziness and immorality that goes on behind closed boardroom doors.
Simon,
yep.
Can I just interrupt briefly? Sorry, You mentioned Bryan Cranston then. Something I didn't mention in the pit. I was talking about that with all the young doctors and whatnot. Mm-hmm. The only main acts that people really are going to go into that knowing is Noah Wyle, but in the cast is Bryan Cranston's daughter.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. Also in there, character actor Brad Dourif. His daughter is also part of the cast.
Crazy. Old Cuckoo's Nest himself, one of the classics. Yeah. The other television series that I'm quite excited about, because I'm a sci-fi nerd, it's created by Noah Hawley. It's called Alien Earth. This is a sci-fi series. It's basically a prequel to the Aliens franchise. Sydney Chandler, who I don't know, she stars as a woman who has the consciousness of a child, says the logline, and the always reliable Timothy Oliphant is her synth character, mentor, and trainer. So, always keen to see what new sort of visionaries do with the Alien franchise, and this should be kind of a big deal.
Speaking of second generation actors, Sydney Chandler is the daughter of Kyle Chandler, who people know from everything.
And who I often get called a lookalike person for. He's kind of like my doppelganger. I just saw you look up then at the monitor as if you'd never looked at me before. You know I look like Kyle Chandler.
I mean, the thing is, I've also never looked at you before. Not really, Simon, but now.
Not in a deep
oh my
way.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. Mr. Early Edition over here. Look at him.
What are you wiping his nose and barely holding back a sneeze? Yeah, what are your 2 films that have got you kind of revved up for 2025?
Look, I mean, anyone who knows me or barely knows me will know there's 2 films on my radar for this year. Big, very big IP swings. Come July, July 4th? July 11th. There's a little film called Superman, which is...
Oh, my God, of course. You
Yeah.
put this challenge to me at the start of the podcast. Could I name them? I named one of them. I totally forgot Superman's happening. All right,
How dare
of
you?
course.
How dare you?
Yeah.
That trailer dropped the other week. We recorded a podcast like moments before the trailer dropped. And yeah, boy, did that trailer live up to my hearts and dreams.
Yes, it was a good trailer.
I'm very into it. Whether the audience will turn out for it or not, I'm not too sure. But look, I'll be satisfied. And debuting on December 19 is Avatar: Fire and Ash, the third in James Cameron's Avatar. What's a 5-film series?
Quintology? No,
I guess it's
something like that.
Isn't Quintology 6?
Is it?
I don't know. Maybe it's 5. I don't know. I lose track after 3.
We can't do maths and we can't speak Latin, so I don't know.
Yeah. Is it pronounced Latin? Latin, I think that's right.
So that's 2025. As we look ahead, we've given you quite a few things to watch. Don't forget to join us this time next year for our preview of 2026. See, I'm starting the sizzle early. I'm trying to get the cast.
Yeah, people will be waiting.
Listening. Yeah. Happy New Year, Dan Barrett.
Happy New Year to you. Folks, we'll be back next week with more screen watching. Obviously, check out my site, alwaysbewatching.com. It's got all the news and information you need about the TV and streaming worlds. Simon Foster, screen-space.net. It's a website that has movie reviews and all sorts of other,
You've never been there, have you?
Things. I've been there once.
Once in 1975.
I tripped over and landed on screen-space.net. It was an awkward day.
You smashed the keyboard and that's what came up.
Folks, we'll see you next week.